why this regional show does really, really well, is because it not just caters to one group. Okay. It caters to the people that are the owners. It also caters to the regional companies, but it also caters to to the larger companies that are out there as well.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Loria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And in this week's episode, we're going to be talking to Joel Davis and Diane Peffer, representing the theater owners of Mid-America ahead of their annual convention in Dallas, Texas, CineShow, coming up on August 26 and 28. That's coming up in the feature segment of today's episode. But before then, we are talking Deadpool and Wolverine, going into a deep dive of what exhibitors can expect from what we believe will be the biggest R-rated opening weekend of all time. And on our panel today, we've got Rebecca Pahle, deputy editor at Box Office Pro, Russ Fischer, editorial director at the Box Office Studios, and Albert Lawrence. And if you've been following the movie scene as a consumer, you are familiar with Albert's appearances on social media. You had a great bit over at CinemaCon with Hugh Jackman. You challenged him to thumb war. How'd that turn out for those who haven't seen the video?
I mean, spoiler alert, Wolverine wins. I mean, Wolverine always wins. But I was just so grateful and humbled by the fact that he even engaged a mere mortal in such a challenge.
I think you have to catch him when he's cutting weight for Wolverine. Yes. Like when he hasn't drank water for 4 days to get those abs. That's when I think you have a fair shot. But, you got him in Vegas. That's right.
But, you know what? Maybe he'll make like an 11th appearance as, Wolverine next time around. I'll get him then.
Yeah, we'll see, especially after this opening weekend, which we'll dive into in a little bit. But before we do, Rebecca, we've got some news to go over. Let's start in the world of PLF, because, of course, the PLF scene is just crazy. And we're going to talk a little bit about that Twisters opening weekend last weekend, Oof. $80 million. Fantastic numbers.
Amazing.
But the PLF trend continues. In Saudi Arabia, one of the world's most dynamic markets, reopens the movie theaters, 2019 when it reopens?
I think it was with the Emoji Movie was the first, technically the first.
If we're not mistaken, might have been the Emoji Movie. And since then, it's just been a PLF hotbed. We've got news here of a major PLF provider entering the market.
Yeah, that is IMAX opening 22 additional locations, and they already have 10 with Movie, the largest circuit in Saudi Arabia, and it's a local circuit. It was, created in the country rather than, say, all the companies like View and AMC that were coming into the market when Saudi Arabia made it legal to do so back in 2019. But yeah, there's a deal to open another 22 in addition to the 10 that they have. Daniel, as you mentioned, PLF, we're at a very dynamic time for that right now. Saudi Arabia is an incredibly dynamic market, especially with PDF. I mean, that's what we hear from everyone, right? If there's a PLF experience in Saudi Arabia, people will go. It doesn't matter what the cost is, people are going.
Yeah, it's been great to see such excitement over movie going now that it's finally back in that country. And then we've got more news here on the Regal side as it's hopping back from bankruptcy, adding 280 RGB pure laser projectors from Christie to its circuit. Rebecca, we see Regal bouncing back and reinvesting in its circuit this year. And the last bit of news here, a new chair appointed to the Cinema Federation from the National Association of Theater Owners. The president and CEO of Harkins Theaters, a top 10 circuit in the nation, Mike Bowers, coming in and taking that spot. It'll be interesting to see what the Cinema Foundation has this year. We've had two very successful National Cinema Days organized by the Cinema Foundation in the prior 2 years. No word if it's going to happen again this year, but I think now that we have a new chair installed, we might find a little more.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, we know that with previous National Cinema Days, the first one taking place right in the thick of closures and the pandemic. And then the second one, I mean, it definitely required some delicate negotiations, I think, between NATO and studios and circuits and the U.S. government in order to make that happen. But I think it's really proven a great success at getting people out to see movies that have maybe been in theaters for a while, particularly when it comes to family titles. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what is in store for the Cinema Foundation this year under Mike Bowers. He's been in the industry for decades. I think he started with Harkins having 6 locations. And as you mentioned, now they are at 32. So definitely a big
32.
expansion.
We made a typo
there
on the online side. So we
Not the print
definitely
side,
know
but
how
we
many
remember
locations. Yeah.
7th largest
Fortunately,
in the
not the
US.
print side. Man, print typos. Don't bring that up in public.
No.
I still shudder from it.
Mm.
Scary stuff. But now let's go into what we're expecting this weekend with our top 3. On number 1, we're expecting Deadpool and Wolverine, opening with just a fantastic range, guys. $175 to $200 million opening weekend. By far, if it hits these numbers, by far the largest opening weekend for an R-rated film.
To put it in context, like what did Oppenheimer open to last year?
Oof, I think
Since
that was
people's
like
memories
80.
are short,
Yeah.
and Oppenheimer is like the last really good reference point.
Yeah, I think that's around 80 million, if I'm not mistaken, on that opening weekend. So this is going to be
82.4 million.
And that seemed like, I mean, granted, it's a very, very different movie, but just talking about
incredibly different movie.
In terms of R-rated movies,
Yeah.
R-rated openings, we're talking about double that, which is crazy.
Massive. And now it has to hit these numbers. And we believe it will, mainly because the pre-sales here have been just through the roof. We've been hearing great things from our forecasting panel, which is putting the ceiling for this movie in its opening weekend at $200 million plus. Now, we want to wait to see how those walk-ups work, but the pre-sales, even if you just look at Fandango alone, guys, this is the top pre-seller of the year on Fandango, the number 1 most anticipated film from users of that ticketing service. I don't see how this is anything but a guaranteed hit.
I mean, we're looking at Deadpool. The first one in 2016 opened to around 132 million. The second one, 2018, 125 million. And you add into that this movie, obviously, the anticipation has been building. It's the only Marvel title to hit screens this year, and it's one of a very small number of superhero movies coming out over the next year anyway. And I mean, you have Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine when he was supposed to have, he's retired, he came back, one last mission or what have you. That's just, they have marketing gold there with that kid.
They really, really do. Now, I have to ask you guys, this is an R-rated movie. We aren't factoring the tickets that are going to be purchased for other movies that people are going to end up in an auditorium for this movie.
Who's the mummy against Deadpool and Wolverine's Phantom Menace?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. I've been meaning to bring this up on the podcast for a couple of weeks now. Of course, sneaking into an R-rated movie for kids now, a lot tougher with reserved seating. You're really taking a risk there, right?
Then you can, I was going to say you can use the seating chart to kind of look ahead and map your way out, but I've never, I don't want to encourage any sort of
no, don't give those tips out there.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask, because come on, we've all done it. Russ, do you remember sneaking into an R-rated movie? Were there MPA ratings back in like Plato's Cave when you started your movie going?
There were stone tablets that had suggestions for content on them. Weirdly, I don't remember sneaking into a lot of R-rated movies. Like my mom took me to a few when I was a kid. We've talked about this before. My mom took me to see like Rambo,
awesome,
and Cobra.
Great
I saw Cobra with my
Cobra?
mom.
Awesome.
When I was 12, whatever. Yeah. So I weirdly, I don't remember sneaking into stuff. I know that like my childhood best friend and I just walked up and bought tickets to RoboCop. We were like, this is called RoboCop. It's going to be stupid. And then it obviously blew our faces off. Yeah. So I don't have a good sneaking into an R-rated movie story, sadly. I just bought tickets like a chump.
I don't think I ever did. I was too lame to even try it. I think.
Same. I didn't even realize that.
Albert, come on, same.
Same. Like I didn't know that theaters
Daniel,
are still
checking
for IDs now. Is that like?
Oh man, no, I don't think it was too many. But definitely, I think I've shared the story. The three theaters that were big in my high school movie going before senior year. It was the Regal UA 12, The Falls in Miami, Florida, AMC Coco Walk which is now, I believe, it is actually a Cinepolis USA location. And then later on in high school, it was the AMC Sunset Place down in Miami. But Regal UA The Falls 12 was the one theater where I went to the most as a middle schooler and in early high school. And with my apologies to the staff there, yeah, no, a lot. I think the first one I ever did it was the Blair Witch Project. Because how could you not? How could you not? The marketing was so good back then.
Yeah, the marketing is, the template for a lot of things.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because with that template, I feel like Deadpool and Wolverine is still one of those movies that's really benefiting a lot from the sort of buzz, even though very few people have seen it. I feel like with Blair Witch, the whole thing was, oh my gosh, you guys are never going to believe what happens in this. You got to see it. It's the scariest thing, such and such. And with Deadpool and Wolverine, even though so few of us have seen it, leading into it, it's you're never going to believe what cameos are in here. You're never going to believe exactly how things are stitched together. This is going to be the revitalization of the MCU. So there's so much hype. And I feel like, just a year ago, we had so many people that were, kind of complaining about, oh, there's the superhero fatigue, Ant-Man, Quantumania, like that didn't do what we wanted it to do. The Marvels didn't do what it was that we wanted to do. We wanted fewer superhero films, bring out the originals. And now we are at this point where we have been clamoring, just waiting to devour something that reminds us of that great superhero gold. And I don't think that if this was 5 years ago that any of us would have predicted that Deadpool would be this actual savior. I mean, when you think about what the original two did, what the first one did versus what the second one did, the second one, yes, in the end ended up outpacing the first one, but it actually took like the re-release. It took that PG-13 version of Deadpool 2 to come on out.
In Russ's words, the airplane edit of Deadpool that came out and just got a lot more viewers. That's right. I forgot that happened.
But this time around, I think that this R version is going to do all the heavy lifting. I don't think we're going to need the PG-13 in order to
Disney's definitely been putting a lot of time, a lot of effort into marketing this one. I think anyone who goes to at AMC, I don't know if it's at Regal and Cinemark and the others, but that Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool don't talk PSA that we've all been seeing for months.
Yeah, they've done a lot of work.
I think
there.
it's
Albert,
cross-industry.
You have the popcorn bucket, Albert. So
and that's a whole other thing, Rebecca. I feel as though, and I guess we probably have Dune to thank for this, but I feel like the popcorn, actually Dune and your podcast to thank for this because, after those popcorn buckets started coming on out, I think that the studios realized that this is just one other way to drive the fandom into
give cinema something to help us market your movies.
Absolutely.
Gives you something to do after you get back from the movies as well, if you design it correctly. No, it's really funny that we've taken this turn with F&B collectibles. I'm not complaining. I think it's wild.
What does the F stand for and what does the B stand for?
Oh, that's all right. That's where we're going. Not bad.
I think one of the things with Deadpool and Wolverine 2 is it's like not the marketing, but just the concept of this movie goes back to the day that the news broke that Marvel had bought Disney. Right?
Yeah, and immediately it was, oh my God, they're going to
goes back to Disney buying Marvel and then to Disney buying Fox. And those two things together become this idea that like just the notion that Disney is going to release an R-rated movie, that it's going to release this R-rated Deadpool movie was a huge object of conversation when Disney buys Fox. That was a huge part of it. And we've seen weird things play out, like the Alien movies are on Disney Plus now. I had to change my kids Disney Plus access because I'm like, why is he scrolling by Alien movies? You're
doing it wrong, Russ. I don't want to give you parenting advice. You're doing it. Remember the great job your mother did taking you into Cobra. By the way, one of the best posters of all time, Stallone, Cobra. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little xenomorph.
It actually kind of comes full circle with that because my first sneaking into an R-rated movie experience was an unintentional one because my mom finally took me to see Superman the movie like way after, or my mom took me to see Superman the movie when not long after it opened in, late 81, early 82. But the movie I really wanted to see at the time was Alien, which had opened in May 81.
Ah, look at that.
And because it was a different time, Alien was still playing. And so we walk into the theater and we sit down and the movie starts and it's space. And I was like, cool, Krypton, blah, blah, blah. And then the letters start coming up and we realize we're in the wrong theater. Instead of being in the theater for Superman, we're in the theater for Alien.
Different kind of Alien. Yeah.
And my mom, it's like my mom and her friend's daughter. And yes, different. Exactly. And they all go like, oh, we're in the wrong place. We got to go find the right thing. And I was like, we are in the right place.
I'm not moving.
Everybody sit down. They didn't do that. They made me get up and leave. But
I don't know if you guys have seen that viral clip online. I think that you can find it on YouTube of like parents that took their kid to see Alien being interviewed outside of the auditorium.
Oh yeah, that is wonderful.
And then they interview
Dallas.
the kids. Yes, in Dallas. And like the kids have just this wide-eyed expression in their face, just dazed. Highly recommended.
Yeah.
Different time, y'all. It was a different time.
Yeah. Daniel, you mentioned, it makes me, you mentioned, how Deadpool and Wolverine will affect the rest of the summer. I mean, I'm super looking forward to Alien Romulus, but you kind of got to wonder, like, how much of, how are the holdovers going to be like? I mean, how long is it going to be extremely difficult for other movies to compete with Deadpool Wolverine? Or alternatively, what's going to get that counter-programming bump? We're definitely having a few weeks in August where it's like, Harold and the Purple Crayon and some movies that we do not necessarily intend to be big summer earners.
Well, I mean, I guess the question is, do movies like Trap and Borderlands expect to have any percentage of PLF screens, which is too bad because Borderlands could probably benefit from something like that, right? But obviously, Deadpool is going to own most of those screens.
I'm just sad that Twisters is getting but I understand it.
But I don't think it's going to get bumped that significantly. Our forecasting panel, the numbers we got for this weekend just came in. They're expecting a $40 to $45 million sophomore frame for Twisters. Okay. Guys, that's not bad.
Nice. That's pretty good.
And honestly, that might be where Alien Romulus opens up at, maybe closer to 50 million if it overperforms. So we're seeing that Deadpool, yes, is going to take a lot of screens. There's going to be a lot of excitement. It's going to dominate PLF probably until Alien steals a couple. But there's enough space in the market for what would be an overperformer in April and May of this year to finish in at number 2, right? Now, I'm not too bullish on Trap or on Borderlands or on Harold and Purple Crayon.
It ends with us.
There's other titles in mid-August that I think can do well. It ends with us, I think, is going to be a real surprise once that opens. I think there's a real opportunity there.
There's a huge fandom for that book. That book is gigantic. There's a dedicated audience for that movie. So I agree with Daniel that It Ends With Us may end up being kind of a weird surprise. It's not going to be an $80 million surprise, but it could be a weird little surprise.
And it'll give people an opportunity to have a Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds double feature right there.
What's the Barbenheimer mashup name for that? It ends with Dead. I don't know.
It
dies with us.
Yeah, you can't force it. You can't. It's just let it happen organically.
They should have put a Colleen Hoover cameo in Deadpool Wolverine. Maybe there's one.
Maybe there is. We don't know. We haven't seen it.
But you know what? I think what really would have boosted August and made us all feel a lot more confident about it is if Horizon and American Saga Chapter 2 would have just stuck.
Stop! Do not beat the dead horse of Horizon. I feel bad.
They wanted to find its audience on VOD. Yeah. I think that's fair.
I saw it last week. Oh boy. I mean, listen, I'm all in for like bloated 3-hour long westerns.
That's your whole thing.
For the stars, but oh man, it just. I think I texted Russ while I was watching it. It has all the grace and subtlety of a Marlboro commercial.
Oh, wow.
It just, Oh, my apologies to Kevin Costner. But who knows? Listen, it's just like a quarter of the fully realized thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll be eating my words once the story, I don't know, develops a little bit more. But it's just a really, really long preface to something that just might not happen, unfortunately. So, yeah, of course, a Horizon not being there. But in hindsight, really, it was the best move from Warner Brothers to make sure that Horizon could find an audience on VOD, get it out of the firing range from Deadpool and Wolverine, and honestly, Alien Romulus, which I think is going to take another big chunk of that adult market. And It Ends With Us, right? Adult women demo going in there. Just let Horizon find an audience. I'm just waiting to see when it gets rescheduled. Now, Russ and I had gone into it like a day before this decision got announced by the time the podcast came out. But we were talking about maybe November if you want to do an award season push, or, January.
How about in January, February? That would be...
January, February looks good. And honestly, this is another thing that we were talking offline, Russ and I. If Napoleon did like 50 million last fall, you're telling me Horizon can't do that?
Right.
I just think Horizon wasn't a summer movie. That was a summer movie that you want to go into that like pre-Thanksgiving dad movie corridor and just bank on that.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that opportunity. Maybe Gladiator 2 is already taking that position in the calendar.
And that'll rev the dads
it's always
up.
going to be tough.
Twisters kind of started it, and now we're going to have Gladiator 2. And by the time they put Horizon 2 out, the dads are going to be storming the theater.
Golden era for dad movies.
Like when you mentioned the idea of of things revving up, and Daniel, specifically what's a summer movie versus what's not a summer movie, it's really making me think about The Fall Guy too, and about how we contextualized and framed the Fall Guy's performance, where it's like, when you put it in a position where there are expectations, the thing was supposed to kick the summer on off, it's not that movie. But if you look at The Fall Guy overall now,
held. The word of mouth. I mean, even after it went to streaming or went to digital rental, it's the narrative around what makes a success box office wise in this industry has always been a little bit. It's a complicated issue, and I think it's good to discuss those things among people who know what they're talking about and aren't just saying every movie's a flop because it didn't open to.
Patience.
What I'll say for Horizon 2 right now is that the weekends of November 1st and November 8th are weirdly blank. And one of those 2 weekends would be a good spot to drop that, because Warner Brothers has got through the promotion and the dealing with Joker. Like, it's out and it's done. And then they don't have, in January, they have the Bong Joon-ho movie. In January, they've got Mickey 17. So it's like you want to leave some room there for those teams. And they've got Lord of the Rings, that movie in December. But early November, those first 2 weeks are pretty blank. And granted, they're not necessarily the best movie weekends, but like, I feel like that's where you drop that movie.
You have a
if
corridor.
You're going to release it
Yeah.
anytime in the next 8 months, I feel like that's where you do it.
So if you go with that November slot, then I feel like the only thing that will still kind of be buzzing is Venom: The Last Dance. So you'll be catching just like, some of the dregs of that. But
different audience though.
Yeah.
Different
more of a Deadpool audience, really.
The other thing we do have to talk about is the idea that the Russo brothers are coming back to do the next Avengers movies.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was must have been announced at Comic-Con, which tells you why I didn't hear about it.
There was a news break from last week, and it's not confirmed, but I mean, it kind of seems like it's probably going to happen.
I thought those guys were all about Netflix now, and no one goes to see their new movie.
Well, that's part of the interesting conversation, isn't it? Because, I think one could easily make the argument that since Endgame, both Marvel and the Russos with their Netflix output have struggled. And the Russos had said for a long time that they would really like to do Secret Wars, which is what Marvel is building to, seemingly kind of starting with Deadpool Wolverine. And, that then, honestly, I think the leak of the news that the Russos might come back to do the next 2 Avengers movie is very good marketing for Deadpool and Wolverine, because it reinvigorates the notion of the Marvel movies as must-see events.
It feels like a refreshing an opening of the new chapter.
It does, even though it's really here's the thing you liked before, we're going to do that thing again. But that's fine. That's part of what, that's part of the appeal. And so my take is that the leak of the news that the Russos were coming back was a strategic drop on Marvel and Disney's part, and that it is very effective marketing for this movie.
Marvel, Disney, they have so much to look forward to and to hype as they go into their Hall H presentation at Comic-Con this weekend. I mean, people are already going to be at a fever pitch because of Deadpool and Wolverine. And then when you add in that additional information about the Russos, and on top of that, we've got the D23 Expo that's coming up after Comic-Con. And so there's just going to be this amazing glut of things that will actually be confirmed and revealed. But this like little spicy tidbit of the Russos returning is exactly what we as fans need in order to reinstill that confidence that like, okay, they know what they're doing.
The year without superhero movies is turning into a pretty good year of marketing future superhero movies.
Wait, you mean scarcity works? So wait a minute. I thought if you just throw all of it on Disney Plus, people will want to go see your movies. Wow. Scarcity. Again, lessons that we've known for 100 years in this industry.
Pixar got the memo.
Yeah, Pixar got the memo, definitely. I feel like the last time there was like a movie opening of this magnitude coinciding with Comic-Con might have been The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I think that's right, Russ. A superhero movie can capture so much of the attention in any given year. And it's not to say that there's no other superhero movies coming out this year. Of course, we've got the third entry of Venom, the final entry of Venom coming out in October. And we'd mentioned, of course, the Joker jukebox musical sequel coming out in November as well.
I can't believe you're not going to even say the name.
Right.
Craven the Hunter.
Right?
Oh, I forgot. But yeah, it's even though there are other superhero movies, some that are anticipated, some that are not, it does feel like Deadpool and Wolverine is just the superhero movie of this year. And we've talked about how it had to be a rebound year for Marvel, and it had to be a rebound year for Pixar after their performance at the box office last year for Disney. We're seeing that. And the other thing that makes me happy, this is something that Russ and I also, I think, went into on the July preview episode of this podcast, is the fact that the 20th Century Studios division of Fox is actually reinvigorated. And you're getting a new Alien movie that people seem like they want to see. And it's not going to Hulu.
I caught up with The First Omen, which was a 20th Century Studios release. That's like one of my top of the
movie.
year.
One more thing, though, Daniel, while we're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is I know that filming for Fantastic Four is, I believe that it kicks off in London like right after Comic-Con, something like around that time. And so that, I believe, between Fantastic Four, between whatever sort of teases within Deadpool, I'm assuming that we're going to get some teases for Disney's X-Men version. Like, we've got so much to look forward to. So yeah, I'm with you. I have no idea if in Deadpool we're going to learn anything about Fantastic Four, or if Marvel's going to keep that squarely in its own space. But yeah, like, I'd love to come back and talk with y'all about that once we understand what.
Now the ball's in Warner Brothers' court to shape that
step up.
franchise.
But even they're resetting themselves next summer with Superman. It just feels like the entire saturation of both the DC and Marvel sides get a little bit of a breather this year. And whatever Sony's doing, I'm not sure even makes sense to Sony. But that's in itself, I think, another Russism. I'm quoting you a lot, Russ, these days. It seems like a modern art project. Just all these Spider-Man movies that Spider-Man isn't in. That's interesting in its own right. We'll let them do their weird, kooky movies. Some are good, some aren't. But the mainstream ones, we really needed a reset. We really needed a refresh, and that's what it feels like, both for Warner Brothers and for Disney. And it starts this weekend. Yeah, we'll be looking forward to see just how this performance shapes up. And that's it for our news segment. Rebecca, Halbert, Russ, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up next, we've got Joel Davis and Diane Feffer from TOMA talking about CineShow happening from August 26 to 28. Rebecca Pahle interviews the pair of them coming up after the break.
Diane and Joel, it's so nice to speak with you today ahead of next month's CineShow. Speaking with Diane Feffer, director of TOMA and CineShow, and Joel Davis of Premiere and TOMA. Guys, I know we're speaking to you from Texas. I know it's been a crazy time down there. How are you doing?
It's smoothing out. We're very resilient in Texas, and we're familiar with hurricanes and tornadoes. So, we're always watching the weather, but, I think things are getting better. So thanks for asking.
By the time CineShow kicks off, that is on August, I have the schedule right here. My goodness.
It's August 26th through the 28th. And so August 26th is when we welcome folks to CineShow, and we have an evening event that's been generously provided to us and sponsored by Studio Movie Grill in the Colony. And we chose that location because that's been fully renovated with Irwin seating, Christie projection, and Plex call. And so we're going to enjoy the premiere of Regan because, as you know, that comes out to the public on August 30th. And so we've got a really good event planned. Studio Movie Grill is really rolling out the red carpet and offering dinner as well as beverages from the bar. And so it's going to be a really nice evening and a way to kind of reconnect with everybody before the full slate starts on Tuesday. And that's Tuesday, August 27th. And our venue is the Embassy Suites Frisco Convention Center, so that venue is seamless. It's just one big door that connects the hotel to the convention center. So I make that point because it is rather hot in Texas in August. And so we chose that venue because, you know, everything's happening in the one space. The two spaces merged into one, I should say. And so, I don't know, we have a great lineup of topics. You know, we really chose topics this year that help people either reduce their cost or make more money. So the first one is really we jumpstart Tuesday, August 27th with, you know, how to increase your profitability in F&B. And the presenters are Tim Farha and his team at AICP. And that's, in a nutshell, helps you look at your current space in the lobby, and they're going to show you visual examples of what you can do to get more sales per capita. And then, speaking about additional revenue, we kind of slide into redemption games. And Amy Dolhanty with Redemption Plus is going to moderate a panel. We've got all kinds of experts on there, from users of redemption games, such as Dennis McGuire from B&B Theater, to Schaefer Distributing, who also supplies those games.
Joel, I wanted to ask you about that increasing profitability in F&B, increasing per caps. I mean, we're seeing just across the board over the past few years, per caps have just kept going up and up and up, and it's been really neat to see. But I feel like this year in particular, there's been a real renaissance for concessions merch that maybe that June popcorn bucket kicked off. We're seeing more stuff coming from Deadpool Wolverine. Is that something that's going to be addressed in that panel? Is it something that you think theaters are well positioned to capitalize on right now?
Yeah, absolutely. All the above. You know, so it's amazing, you know, to see a lot of this merchandise come back into theaters. I can remember back in the 90s when we started selling T-shirts and hats, and from time to time on different movies that would come out, and, you know, staff just loved selling the merchandise. But now we're actually seeing these great collectible vessels that are coming through the door. And, you know, you got some great companies that are providing these. They're licensed by the film studios. They're just something fun and new. And the consumers are coming out because, you know, the reality is that they're limited, right? And I guess that's sort of the secret sauce of selling this kind of merchandise, is it's limited, and people walk through the door and they want it quickly, and it sells out really fast at, you know, most of our locations at Premiere. It's, you know, really nice to see the staff get involved and, you know, sell this product that's out there for the merchandise, because, you know, we'll run it up against a contest, and I know our competitors are doing that too, and we reward our staff at that point in time. They love selling this merchandise, and the consumers love it as well. It's just, you know, who doesn't love a Garfield mug, you know, sitting there, and you're just like, wow, it's an amazing time in the concession side of the business. You're right about the per caps. We've seen the per caps just climb through the years here, and it's been great because the consumers are coming out, and I think people are just merchandising a lot better than what they did in the past. They've noticed what their competitors have done and what's worked well for them, and basically they've duplicated it, you know, across the board, and we've seen per caps go up consequently.
Yes, we do have an alliance. TOMA has an alliance with Texas Restaurant Association, and we're just kind of coming up on 1 year of that relationship. And so it really benefits those cinemas who are members of TOMA that have locations in Texas. Mm-hmm. And so they can have a dual membership in TRA. That's an acronym for Texas Restaurant Association. And so that's been a good relationship. They have offices throughout Texas, and they've got, as I call it, boots on the ground, meaning they're really in touch with the lobbying that's going on and the bills that are thinking about being passed. They can see if they are going to help or hinder theaters. Mm-hmm. And so they're doing that on behalf of us, because many of us have restaurants in our theaters, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why it's been a very good marriage. But I think I mentioned that we're having, if I didn't already, the fundamentals of presentation technology for non-technical professions. And so we want to thank ICTA for bringing that to us. Mm-hmm. So that's really good for new employees you've hired that might not have a background in cinema technology. We also, on a serious side, we're bringing a retired FBI executive who's been in the trenches. Obviously, his whole career was in the FBI. He retired, and since then he's been an expert witness in 34 different active shooter cases. And his name is Danny Colson, and so he's an expert in what we call terrorism and violent crime. And so he will be giving a session on how to respond to active shooters. And we're actually offering it 2 different times. So if you go to one seminar, you can flip over and go to one of the active shooter seminars. So I encourage people in these times, it's nice to think we know everything we know about CPR, mm-hmm. how to prepare for a tornado, but on the other end of the spectrum, active shooter. But it's one of those that you have to keep those skills alive, mm-hmm. and it'll all be right there for you. And so I encourage people to stop into that. And then we, on a real positive side, we're going to be giving some awards at our show. Mm-hmm. And one of them is to Rob Lehman, and that award will be presented by Rico's Tony Liberto, the CEO of that company. And so this is an annual award given, and so this year it is given to Rob Lehman with Santikos Entertainment. Mm-hmm. The other award that we're going to be given is the Visionary Award, and that goes to Nathan, Jacob, Morris, and Clayton Schulman. Mm-hmm. And that is given to Schulman Theaters for their length of time in the business, dating back to, I believe, 1926. And they're not just their duration in the business, but their vision to keep changing with the times, mm-hmm. toward this next generation.
These companies that have been around, for 100 years, some companies have been around for a decade. Mm-hmm. We have some new theater companies that are entering the market, which is great to see these new people get in. And this is a great show for them to come in and, meet the vendors that are there. I mean, this is the premier regional trade show, the whole industry. Mm-hmm. This trade show sold out. I think we had every vendor under the sun that could be in the cinema industry right here at CineShow in Dallas. And it's just a great time to have everybody under one roof, mm-hmm. and kind of walk around and get to meet new people. So it's always great to see, these newcomers come in and they come to the show just to learn a little bit more about the industry and what's going on and make those relationships. And then on the flip side of it, for everybody that have been veterans in the industry, it's a great time to visit with friends in the industry as well that are also on the vendor side, because, they're such a part of our industry as well, right? And we can't, pop popcorn if we don't have the popcorn manufacturers out there making the machines for us, right? Mm-hmm. So it's for us having those relationships and zoning in on them and then making sure they're specific for our industry is so great. And having this show to go to, for the last, what is this coming up show? Is it 22 years right now, Diane?
25, right?
It's actually 25, Joel. That's okay.
Wow, time is flying.
That's okay. Yeah, we're celebrating 25.
I've been to every show but one, right? So, so 25 years. Wow, it's amazing. So time flies when you're having fun. But it's a great industry with some great people in it. Mm-hmm. And it's also great to meet those counterparts and those other cinema companies. And so many people have so many, I'll say this, great ideas out there. Mm-hmm. It's, just wonderful to listen to them, seeing what they're doing in their company and picking up on that. And it's great. There's some things that you can pick up at CineShow that I think are really great. We got a great lineup of seminars, and I think people just gravitate towards these seminars because, they're so informational. And then they take that back and it re-energizes them as well. I also look at this show as, a celebration of the summer, right? Mm-hmm. Because what a great summer that we've had, right?
I'm looking at the Wednesday morning programming, and it's like surviving the film desert, which is like, thank God we're not in one anymore. Yeah, but that's still good. That's still actionable, informational. Like you want to be able to listen to what other cinemas are doing, other ideas that have been tried, see if you can maybe tweak them to fit your own particular situation. And then the next panel on Wednesday mornings is property taxes, which is not my bag, but it is very, very, very important. If you don't, it's geared towards beginners or people who don't really are familiar with ducking into that whole issue.
Right. It's very important because if you can figure or crack that nut, so to speak, think of the gains you can make, Mm-hmm. And so we actually had someone call us saying they're coming to CineShow specifically for that seminar. Mm-hmm. So we were really appreciative of Mike Hagan who's CFO of B&B Theaters. He's put together experts, mm-hmm. and I think it's going to be very informational, because it's going to guide you on what kind of arguments can you literally make, whether you have a drive-in or a normal, typical theater. And then the panel is going to offer insights into the process, what information you should gather. And they've been there. This is what they do. So, yeah, and as far as going back to surviving the film desert, we do have a panel on that. And I think what this year has taught us is be prepared, mm-hmm. like have strategies. And so these folks are experts in this area, and everything from Colleen Barstow, who's the chair of iTalk, and she's going to be moderating that panel, to Mike Waterston, who's with CubeWire, Scott Daw, who's with Theater Sports Network. Again, these are new things that you can be, international films to, college bowl games you can be programming. And then we have Gary Frank, who's really doing some very interactive events going on while or before a film show, so you really make it immersive. So, and then we're welcoming our film distributors, as Joel might have said, with these new releases, and we're all going to be excited about that. Yeah, one thing I'll say, as Joel mentioned, the different types of industries at CineShow. It's interesting because we have them listed in alphabetical order on our map, and you can access that at CineShow.org. And so I'm going to spell that, CineShow.org. Mm-hmm. And if you visit that, there'll be a button that's the trade show map. And when you click that, the whole map will be displayed, and it's listed again from A to Z. So it's interesting because it reflects the businesses that are engaged in cinema and how they've changed over 25 years.
You can actually chat with people, unlike at CinemaCon. You're just kind of waving from across a casino as you run from one thing to something else.
I do want to close with our CineShow does end, and I think I slightly mentioned this, it ends on Wednesday, where the film distributors will be showing different films, and we'll be doing that at Flick's Brew House in their Little Elm location. Mm-hmm. And they also are rolling out the carpet. The brewery will be open, as well as anything, you want off the menu. They've created a nice menu for us, but it's going to be a very nice time. Even if you want to have a meeting there, there's little areas, secluded areas in the lobby where you can have a meeting, or you can go in and join the rest of us while we're watching the trailers. Mm-hmm. So we want to thank Flick's Brew House too.
Joel, what are you looking forward to from the trade show floor, or just in general from CineShow this year?
That's a great question, right? I love walking the trade show floor. And, this show is just the perfect show to do that and, spend some time with each vendor one-on-one and, find out what's new, strengthening those relationships that we have with our vendor.
I just want to shout out, to Ruiz Foods. They are the largest Mexican frozen food company in the United States. They just moved their headquarters from California to Texas. And so I had heard about that on the news, gave them a call. They were very interested. Coincidentally, they were actually talking and strategizing about how to approach the cinema market. So it was just great timing. And the same thing with Sigma Food Service. They're sort of new into this area. They're trying to make a headway, into cinemas as well. So we welcome these new folks. And that's the kind of juice you need to get people realize what they don't know.
Mm-hmm. We have our community that's in Hollywood that's going to come and support us from the studios, and we're getting to celebrate the product that we just had here in the summer, which was, a wonderful summer. I mean, it's just a breath of fresh air to see the product that we had and how well it did. Just looking at the animated product that we had, it's unbelievable, and we're going to carry on. I know Deadpool is going to do really, really well coming up. It's supposed to be the number one R-rated movie of all time. So everybody is just super excited about going to the movies. It's telling us that, hey, audiences love going to the movies, and we're seeing it in the box office receipts, right?
And Texas has always been such a great hub of innovation in cinema exhibition. I mean, this if you're involved in this space and if you're in the area, it's really a can't miss kind of an event.
Right. Yeah. And then looking at what we're going to be doing at CineShow, when we have the studios come out and do their presentations and seeing the new product that's going to be coming up, here in the fall, that just gets everybody just so excited about, hey, what's coming up at Thanksgiving, what's coming at Christmas. But, it looks like on the calendar this year, we actually going to have a really good September. I mean, there's some little movie called Beetlejuice that's coming out that's going to, push us through. October looks good. So it's really nice to see that the product is, going across the spectrum on all the months, and that it's not just all at one time, and it's carrying us through. And then, of course, 2025 looks like it's going to be an extraordinary year for us in the industry. So we're all really excited about that. And this show, that's really what it does, is get people excited about the industry, the veterans. And then the other piece of it is that we're also bringing, the management teams from these different locations that are coming in, and then the managers that run these locations, they're getting excited about the products that are coming in. So that's why this regional show does really, really well, is because it not just caters to one group. Okay. It caters to the people that are the owners. It also caters to the regional companies, but it also caters to to the larger companies that are out there as well. So we pull everybody in as an audience in our industry, and it's just a great, like I said, I think the CineShow is the greatest regional show that we have in the country. And I've been to a lot of the shows. So, and Diane does a great job as a showrunner. She's been doing the show for the last 3 years, and it's just been wonderful.
And that was Diane Peffer and Joel Davis talking about CineShow happening in Dallas, Texas from August 26th to 28th. A great event. Always, always nice to go down to Texas and see the latest developments in exhibition in the region. Earlier, you heard from Albert Lawrence, Russ Fischer, and Rebecca Pahle. And on behalf of all of them and myself, Daniel Loria, we want to thank you for listening to the Box Office Podcast. New episodes come out every Thursday, so don't forget to subscribe, and we will talk to you again next week.